Harvey, let's go ahead and get started. So thank you all for joining. My name is Nathan Piccini. I am a marketing manager here at Data Science Dojo. And today I have Dr. Harvey Castro, medical doctor, MBA. I like to call you an AI guy here. And you, like currently, I know you're a assistant professor at the University of Texas, San Antonio. Um, but thank you so much for joining us. A couple of announcements. This is one of our live events. So if you have questions and you're in Zoom with me, would love to get those in the Q&A tab, just because it helps us keep everything organized. If you're on a live stream, that could be Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever chat you have available to you. Go ahead and ask questions there, and they actually get pulled into Zoom for us, so we will get those answered. We are going to answer questions at the end. So if you can leave us a little bit of context with your question, that would be really helpful for us, so that we don't have to do a little guesswork or ask you to give us some context and then come back to it later, right? And so, Harvey, with that, why don't you go ahead
Share
and
the
take it from
screen.
there? Yeah, I don't think I have any other announcements, but if I miss something, I'll toss it in the chat.
All right. Can you see the screen?
We can. Yep.
All right. Then let me get it going here. Let me start it. And then I got to do this one button so that it can look really big. All right. Hopefully you guys can really see it now.
Perfect.
All right. Well, I hate when it started at the back. Sorry, I'm just trying to go back. Get out of this. Should have started at the front. I don't know why I started at the end.
No worries. And maybe while you're getting this set up, I can mention that you're going to be talking about revolutionizing healthcare with generative AI, prompt engineering, and emergency medicine. So I know we're really excited for it. I'm sure, and sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name or butchering it. I think it's Haley. I'm sure they're excited about it too.
I don't know why it keeps doing that. Sorry. You know what? We'll just start with that first slide that was up already. So I'll start. My name is Dr. Harvey Castro. I'll multitask. I'll hit this and get this going. I'm a board certified emergency medicine physician with over 20 years of experience. I've been really blessed in that I fell into ChatGPT, and I'm going to start with that story. So basically, when I started my career, at that time, a couple of things were going on. Number one was Dr. Google. Number two was the iPhone. And I'm going to start with just talking about the iPhone. Back then, man, I don't know why it keeps doing that. I'm trying to get all the slides and it's not. You know what? Let me just do this and then see if that does anything. Anyway, I started as an ER doc and I was coding a patient with a nurse. And at the time, the nurse got this big textbook out. And when she got the textbook out, she was verifying the dose that I gave her. And I thought, holy cow, this is taking too long. This person's literally dying in front of me. And so I decided to teach myself how to program, and I created the first app called IV Meds. And at the time, it actually went viral. It went around the world and it was selling. And I decided, you know what, there's a need for doctors to be very involved in healthcare. And so fast forward, I did over 30 apps. I became a consultant for different hospital systems and different companies on AI. I'm sorry, in apps, mobile apps, Android and iPhone. Well, fast forward last year, November, I was playing with ChatGPT and literally I said, holy cow, this is going to change medicine. And so I know my wife thought I was crazy. I started writing books on, I wrote the first book called ChatGPT and Healthcare. And I'll never forget her looking at me during the holidays saying, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm writing this book. And she's like, I don't know what this ChatGPT thing is. So then I explained it. And I'll never forget her telling me, no one's going to look at that book. No one's ever going to read it. No one understands it. So you'll be alone. So it's kind of funny because fast forward, as a result of the book, I started getting calls from literally around the world. So I've been just giving talks literally around the world on this subject. So thanks for having me. And I don't know what's going on with these slides, but we're just going to roll with it. I'm going to start with saying, why do I think ChatGPT is so important? Well, number one, according to Scientific America, there was a study on the verbal portion of IQ. It basically said that ChatGPT was around 155. To give you some reference, the average person is between 80 and 110. Elon Musk, Albert Einstein, those guys are around 155. So they're right at where ChatGPT's verbal skills are. Um, of note, the Unabomber actually had a high IQ. His was 180. Why do I mention that? Because I like talking about ChatGPT. For those that don't know what the heck ChatGPT is, I say, look, it's kind of like having your best friend that him and her is available to you 24/7. He or her never gets tired. You can ask anything you want, and your best friend will do their best to answer back and give you pretty good information. The problem is when your friend doesn't know the information, it hallucinates or sometimes tells you things that are not true. And that's my analogy of just kind of explaining how ChatGPT works. And obviously, you're here because you want to know why it works in healthcare. And number one, say, let's just use it for communication. Use it to create better conversations with your doctor. I know some doctors hate it when I say this, but why not use ChatGPT to talk to your patients? Meaning, if you know you have hypertension, diabetes, if you know you're going to go see your doctor and you're going to have your visit, have ChatGPT give you the questions. What should I ask my doctor? What are the follow-up questions? That way you spend time with your doctor, but it's really efficient. Believe it or not, the average person in the United States only gets about 13 minutes with their doctor. And I don't even believe it's 13 minutes. I really think it's less than that. Reason being, by the time you go in and you get your vitals and you say hello and back and forth and do the small talk, you're really not spending 13 minutes of medical education. You're next to the expert. So why not use ChatGPT to help you? Now, this is one of my favorite examples. A hospital out of England did this, and I thought this was genius. They took the discharge of a normal patient that, let's say this was a kid, say they were 5 years old. And what they did is they said, they took their current discharge instructions, fed it into ChatGPT and said, okay, change the language as if you were talking to a 5-year-old. So then it took the discharge instructions, made it into the words that you would use with a 5-year-old. But then it gets better. They used Midjourney to create illustrations for every point that it was trying to make, and they converted all of it into a coloring book. And now, when the child was being discharged, they actually gave the child a coloring book. And I thought, man, this is smart because if you have kids, you know how hard it is to talk to a 5-year-old. Imagine telling them you got to take your meds, and this is what's going to mess up your asthma, and these are the things that makes it worse, and this is why we need to do the following tests, and this is why your inhaler is important. This coloring book went through it. And then as a result, the nurses, the doctors, everybody could color with the child. The parents could go use it as a reference. I know so many times that I've discharged patients and I give them a folder with their paperwork and I ask them, have you gone through your paperwork? And they don't. A lot of people don't. But I thought, here's a way that we're making it interactive. And I thought that's a good way of using AI in healthcare. Now, the other part that's really tough is as a doctor, keeping up to date is really tough. That's why we have doctors that are family practice, cardiologists. I'm an ER doc. And so there's no way one doctor can know it all. Can be a surgeon, can be a trauma surgeon, can be a neurosurgeon, can be a dermatologist. So we have to specialize. Now, what's really crazy is medical knowledge has gotten so advanced that now medical knowledge doubles. All my medical knowledge doubles every 30 days. That's unreal. Just again, to give you some reference, back in the 1950s, to double your medical knowledge, that information that was coming in, it would take 50 years. So we went from some medical knowledge from 50 years to now 30 days. And so in theory, if you were a doctor back in the 1950s, you literally could take a decade off and not learn anything, and you would still be in vogue. You would still know everything, or at least most of it. Now, if you take a month off, you really are behind. And so how do we fix that problem? In my opinion, I say ChatGPT is kind of like Kleenex. It could be another GPT. It could be Bard, or it could be, I'll go into different databases that are out there that will be specific to healthcare. So with GPT, now we can create applications that can send me an email or give me a website that gives me all the journals, and once a week it's pulling from my specialty. So, this is a way that I can actually keep up to date, and I think it'll be great.
Hey,
Now,
Harvey, I don't
yeah,
I don't mean to disrupt your flow. Can we try zooming in on or making the slides full screen one more time? Um, uh,
yeah. How's that? That should work.
there we go. Yep. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so now on the bad, some of the bad parts, obviously it's hallucination. If it doesn't say the right thing and we're using it in healthcare, here with life and threatening issues where if we make a wrong decision, someone can die. So this is really, we got to be very careful how we do it. I'm a real big proponent that doctors should use it, knowing that it hallucinates. And I look at AI kind of like wearing a stethoscope, ordering a CAT scan, doing some blood work. As a doctor, you do your clinical gestalt to say, is this correct? Is this wrong? Sometimes we get information as a doctor that we know is incorrect. We know how to go through it. So with ChatGPT, I feel like doctors don't know this, but they need to really understand how it hallucinates and why. Now, the other part that a lot of people argue, it's like, well, it's old data. It's trained back in September 21. It doesn't even know who just won the World Cup last winter. Well, now there's ways of using plugins and other ways that you could use that, but that's just an argument in general. The other one is, hey, this data was just a general tool, was never meant for healthcare. And that's where I say, well, we need something like BioGPT, and I'll go into that. The other bad is biases. As we learn about this large language model, my big thing is it has biases. This information is in English. So if you're using this in other parts of the world that don't use English, you're going to lose things to translation. As best as amazing it is at translating, I think you're not going to get as many tokens or information. Think of tokens as the amount of conversation you have. Once you're translating, you may be using up tokens because it may take longer to explain it in a different language, or it may not translate correctly. So that's one. The other one that's huge is the biases in the United States. So if it was doing research or if it got trained on certain data, but that data is not really reflective in how you're using ChatGPT in your region, it's going to have biases. The other one, obviously, is huge carbon footprint. This takes a lot of energy. And because of it, that's some concerns for our environment. Obviously, the other one is ethics. I personally worry that there's going to be an internet gap and it's going to make it only worse, meaning, this information coming from ChatGPT is so good. What if that you don't have internet? What if you're in part of the world or even the United States that can't get access to this? Well, follow this train of thought. If I can prove to you that ChatGPT will increase your lifestyle, increase your lifespan, and I can prove that using this technology, you are going to have a better life and longer life. And then let's just say others that don't have access to this information or can't afford it, then all of a sudden now they're not going to have that correlation. Right now, it's about $20 a month to get OpenAI, to get the paid edition, and there's a free edition, and we can talk about what the difference is. But big picture is, what if I don't know if people know this, but they're saying between $700,000 and $800,000 is what ChatGPT has to spend to keep these servers going. That's crazy, per day. And so obviously this is taking a lot of money, and they need money to keep it going. So I'm worried that what if tomorrow they all of a sudden decide to go more. Now I'm having trouble when I duplicate the slide. So I can't advance the slide. So I gotta literally go back and forth. So I think in the interest of,
Can you try putting it slideshow in the PowerPoint thing that you opened earlier?
yeah, I think since you have a copy of this, I think it's easier to just go
Yeah,
on
yeah.
this. And
Let
I
me
thought you
see.
had loaded this, and that's why I had sent them to you.
Okay, maybe I can do that. Just a minute.
But I think, yeah. All right. So the next one is the unknown. We talk about the unknown often. What about what's going to happen? There's unintended consequences, and we really don't know what's going to happen. We know that AI is going to disrupt markets. We know that jobs are going to change, and in some verticals, some jobs will be more lost than gained from AI. I think personally that third world countries are going to start using ChatGPT faster in healthcare than the United States, meaning In Africa, for example, the risk versus benefits, there's certain areas that literally have no access to healthcare. I see, the government using it more as, let's work with you. Let's have the satellites give us internet. Let's send PAs with mobile stations to villages and help give them healthcare. And I see them thinking outside the box and being able to do things a lot quicker than here in the US. Now, this is really cool. Recently, they finally announced that they're using multimodal, and they've said they announced it, but no one's really been able to use it. Now they're starting to phase it. And so what multimodal means is basically this. You can now take a picture of a skin lesion, an EKG, an X-ray. You can upload it to the servers of ChatGPT, and then it will look at the X-ray and interpret it. Now, obviously, it's going to say, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a radiologist, I can't do this. But if you put this tool in the right hands of the right doctor, and I say right doctor because if I'm a dermatologist and I'm looking at these images, I already know if it's hallucinating, if it's doing it correct or not, but I think it's an excellent extra tool. Other examples is there's already products out there in ophthalmology that talks about taking a retinal image and seeing if the person has diabetes. I mean, these things can be a great screening test. As we move forward, this multimodality, I believe next year is going to be the key where we're going to start seeing more of these things. I know not many people are aware, but this camera that I'm using can, in theory, take my blood pressure, my hemoglobin A1C, can see what I'm like, my age, how old I am, and it could go both ways. Meaning, I could take a video, upload it to ChatGPT, and it can look at it. Or what's coming pretty soon is I can start typing, and it make the video. So imagine you're seeing a doctor and you have diabetes and you don't understand the disease. In the near future, we'll be able to type and give you the discharge instruction, but then that will become a video in itself and it'll generate it right in front of you. And now you can see it. And I'll go over some other examples. The other one, since I'm an ER doc, I feel obligated to give this example. I have patients that are overdose and literally unconscious, and the paramedics come in and show me some pills and say, here you go, doc. And I'm looking at the pills and I have no idea why my patient's unconscious. All I know is that they took these pills. Well, now I can take my phone and I can literally take a picture of it. And with that, literally I can identify the pill. Now, in theory, if that's tied to a database that's with poison control, then that pill can tell me, hey, you have X disease. This is what is going on. This is the antidote. And then that picture and the whole database process can be talking to the pharmacy, where the pharmacy within seconds can send me the antidote. Why do I think this is so important? Because again, it's going to be another tool. It's going to be a way that we can help our healthcare force. Now, there's a new player coming. It's called Gemini. It's by Google. There are some predictions that it's going to be about 10 times better. And so that you understand, there's different GPTs out there. ChatGPT is not the only one. There's Bard, there's Claude. So I'm going to encourage everybody to go on Bard and play with it. Basically, you're going to look at the results and be like, it's not that good. And honestly, I'm not crazy about it. But the reason I'm mentioning it is because think of it this way. Once the engine, the back engine gets changed to Gemini, it's going to change things. I think at that point, Bard will actually be better than ChatGPT for certain functions. And one of them being just information. So you'll see what I mean by it when you start playing with it. The other thing that's really cool is that Microsoft now has added GPT into their operating system. They're going to do another update here in November. And I personally think that come next year, when they come out with Windows 12, it'll be literally on your computer. So like it or not, AI will live on your Microsoft computer. And if you don't want AI and you buy an Apple computer, well, the latest Apple computer now has a small large language model in it. And if you want to avoid those and you're like, I'm just going to use my iPhone, well, the newest iPhone now has AI built inside of it. It's very small. It's about 34 million parameters, but it's in there. Why do I share this? Because the future is here. We need to understand these tools. If we don't know how to use these tools, we're going to fall behind. Our productivity can be so much better if we can use these tools. So I'm going to encourage you to take a look at ChatGPT, look at their plugins, look at all these functions that we're talking about. I think it's worth the $20. I have no ownership in OpenAI. I wish I did, but I'll just share that. Now, let's look at this from a category point of view for ChatGPT. Well, number one, you could do text generation, where you could do a pre-authorization letter. You can do summarizations where if I have patients that have like these big files, it can just summarize all of it. I can have questions with my patients in the sense that I can create a bot that's basically me. It can be on my website and it can go back and forth with my patients. Now, obviously, HIPAA compliance, we got to make sure that all of this is HIPAA compliant and making sure all this is fine. Number two, assuming we can do that, and I can explain how that can be done. Other things that can be done here are teaching empathy. Doctors are not the best at speaking at certain things. So why not use ChatGPT to kind of break down ideas, break down certain concepts. And then with teaching empathy, we're so focused on the medicine, we can learn a lot from ChatGPT. We can ask it, how do I sit? How do I ask? What are the common things that patients feel that are not empathetic? So anyway, big picture, these are things that are about to come and are here. Now, the future. When it comes to the future, if you haven't played with Khan Academy, there's some YouTube videos that you can see, but basically think of it this way. Khan Academy teaches, it's free. I forget how much they charge, but for $20, you can have an AI tutor and it can walk you through and kind of help you learn things. The reason I mention that is because I see that same parallel coming in healthcare. I think we'll have an AI bot in our computer med schools that students can use and learn from. The other big one is Epic, electronic medical record. They're already in bed with Microsoft and OpenAI, and together they're creating these summaries for our doctors that they can use basically ChatGPT inside of it. The Mayo Clinic is using MedPalm 2 and ChatGPT. There's this really cool thing by New York Tron. It's these group of hospitals that they're using their data for all these patients, and what they've done is pretty smart. They have these patients where, say, I'm discharging a patient and they've been in the hospital for a few days. Well, this AI can go through all the prior patients that are similar to that patient and tell me, hey, this patient probably needs to stay another day or two because of X, Y, Z. Hey, this person is probably going to end up coming back. You may want to not discharge, or the opposite. Say, hey, everything checks out. This person can go home now. So this is pretty cool. What is the future? I want to give you some examples. If you haven't played with plugins, think of it this way. ChatGPT, there's the task of ChatGPT, but then plugins can maybe help you get on the internet, can maybe do other tasks. So I'm going to go over a doctor example. Here in the United States, we got this thing called Instacart. You could basically have your groceries brought to you. Well, as a doctor, I was thinking, man, this would be kind of fun. What if I have a patient, again, I'm just going to use diabetes as an example, and say their hemoglobin A1C is 10, which is their average sugars, really, really high. And then I say, you know what, ChatGPT, my patient here hates nuts, doesn't like fish, doesn't eat meat, but really likes desserts and carbohydrates, but I got to put them on a keto diet. Well, ChatGPT can go through it and then tell me what that person can make, what they can eat, and then can actually create a meal plan for every single day, what ingredients, how to cook it. And then here's the best part. If I'm using this plugin as a doctor, I could take all those groceries that I said, okay, yeah, this is all good, put it on their Instacart. And then by the time the patient's home, those groceries are there waiting for them. One of the things that I personally created, I created this plugin called Decision Matrix and Decision Diagram, but all it is I created prompt engineering in the background where if you have any marketing question, if you have any ethical question, you ask it, you use the plugin, and then it gives you basically all these answers based on all these like theories. It's pretty interesting. Again, it's free. If you happen to have ChatGPT 4, go ahead and check it out. Now, I talked about this. What is the future? There's going to be a thing called BioGPT. It's already in existence. Think of it this way. ChatGPT was trained on the internet, trained on all these books, but really wasn't trained 100% on medical knowledge. What if I took all the medical journals and only trained it on medical knowledge, medical textbooks, medical publications, journals, and reinforced it with doctors instead of human beings that are just generic, that don't have doctor training, train it with doctors. Now, when I say train it, what if I created my own large language model that was for emergency rooms, and then I only use ER doctors and ER data? Now that information would be much better than generic ChatGPT. Now, out there, we got Bard 2. Bard, we got Palm 2, we got this company called Glass Health. Take a look at it if you're in healthcare, but the skinny is they're doing what I just mentioned, just doing reinforced learning from a doctor's point of view. I believe they recently got like $5 million. Hippocratic AI got about 50 million back in May. So my thing is, what's the next ER LLM? If you are doing ER LLM, call me because I want to be part of that one. I think we're all going to have our own LLM on our phones. I really think this will be something that we all will have in the near future. And I highly encourage everybody to look at into iPhones, the 15, and what they're putting into them and what's coming. The reason why it's so important is because if you're able to put a large language model on your phone, you don't need the internet. So imagine if you're in a place that has no internet and you really need AI, you could start putting a certain amount of AI on your phone. I think that is going to be the future. And I call it the AI wars. We got Microsoft with Google and against Google, and we got Google Gemini about to hit, and then we got OpenAI. If you haven't kept up with the news, there's so many things. They now that vision thing that I just told you can take a picture and upload it. You have that. You now you can have a conversation with ChatGPT if you have the app and just talk to it. So all of these things are coming because I think OpenAI knows that Gemini is about to come out, and they know that this is going to be a competitor. So they're really trying to get in there now. I want to talk about Elon Musk. He has a thing called Truth GPT. And the only reason I want to mention it is because I look at it as a, I don't know, like a chess move. So he bought Twitter, which is now X. He's got all this data from Twitter. We know that these tools take a lot of energy. Well, he's got these solar energy mini cities that he can literally power a whole state if he wanted to for free because he's got these solar panels. He's got more data from Tesla driving, years of Tesla data of these cars. He's got supercomputers. He's got SpaceX with all this information, that we don't even know about from SpaceX. You put it together, and then he's got this dream team of GPT prior AI scientists, and he's putting them all together to create this thing called Truth GPT. So keep an eye out for that one. That's going to be interesting. Sorry, I already mentioned Apple GPT. That one's going to be pretty cool. I think in the future, we're going to have a CPR on our phone, meaning no matter your internet or not, somebody passes out, the phone will show you what to do, how to do chest compressions, how not to do it. If it changes, I think it's going to be amazing, and that's coming. There was this thing called advanced data analysis, ADA on ChatGPT. It used to be called code interpreter, and the skinny is this. You can put in any information. I went on the US government website, downloaded some file on obesity and uploaded it. And it kind of gave me what to do and gave me graphs just on that. I can have conversations with this data. It's pretty cool. I'd highly encourage you to do it. I took my LinkedIn profile, I uploaded my profile and said, hey, make a video, and it made it. It's really cool. So definitely take a look at that function. Now, what's the future in all this? Well, I think it's going to be multimodality. I already mentioned that. I think it's going to be that whole video. And excuse me, because we have such a big shortage, I think robots is going to be the next big thing, meaning ChatGPT is invested in another company that this year will have robots. Those robots will only get better because of reinforced learning from ChatGPT. What I envision, I haven't read this, but I think it's going to happen, is they're going to put ChatGPT 4 or 5 in the eyes of the robot. And that way, that robot can see your blood pressure, can know your hemoglobin A1C, can learn from it, can learn from its environment. In the healthcare world, the average nurse is about 54 years old, with 20% of that being 65 and older. So if we keep that up in the next 10 years, the average nurse will be 64 years old, with 20% of that being 74. So we need something. And so I really think it's going to be robots. I think it's going to be having a robot that can help lift a patient, can help bring medication, can help be that assistant. As a doctor, I could have the assistant give me information, help me with information, give me summaries, help me take notes. I really think that is the future. And I also think the future will be discharging the patient. We're going to see the doctors giving you glasses, and you put on these glasses and you'll be able to see your diabetes, see your disease process, see why you need to take your medicine. It's going to be pretty cool. And so that's the AI, VR, and AR. I wanted to make sure I kept it somewhat short than I usually talk, because I want to make sure I have time for Q&As. It tends to be a lot of talks. People have questions. Here's my QR codes. One of them is to my books. The other one is to me. I want to talk about a couple of things. I'm on all the social media under Harvey Castro, MD. But this is kind of interesting. So what I did is I cloned my voice. I go and take any articles that are out there on healthcare. I plug it into ChatGPT. It gives me a fake conversation between my business partner's cloned voice and mine. And then we created this thing called the GPT podcast. So it sounds just like me. We go through it and it goes back and forth, but the whole thing, it was generated by AI. In fact, I hadn't met him for like 4 or 5 months, and we had been doing this for 4 or 5 months before we actually were in person talking. So it was kind of interesting. The other thing I wanted to talk about is this technology can help you. It's just all about what vertical you're doing, what you're doing, and then using these tools to be more successful. So with that, I'm going to end it and we can jump into Q&A.
All right, thanks, Harvey. So we do have a couple of questions I'm going to ask you. I'll read them out loud to you, but if you want to open up that Q&A tab,
Okay, let me
that'll
do
be
that.
helpful. So what are some potential legal ramifications for clinicians, and how do we protect ourselves when using AI as our partner?
Awesome question. So number one, unfortunately, a lot of hospitals are, they're basically making it where no matter what you do, the AI, you're responsible. So if the AI messes up because you used it or not used it, you're responsible. And so the way it's written, they're looking at it as, think of it as you ordered a CAT scan and the patient had a bad, say the CAT scan didn't give good reading or was misinterpreted, you're still held liable. How to protect ourselves. I think I created my own course on AI in healthcare. You can feel free to go on LinkedIn and I can show you the link. But the skinny is we got to learn how to use these tools. We got to learn how to not use them. The best protection is really knowing the tools. Unfortunately, hospitals are just starting to integrate this, and regardless of what the doctor says or not, it's being integrated. We're seeing it in the X-ray world, CT world. It's already there, but it's only growing. So I would say, to best protect yourself, learn the tool, ask the questions, talk to your administrator, see what's being done. And if there are certain vendors, I'll put the link on the chat here. And then if you want to share it, if there's certain vendors that are coming to your hospital and the hospital is for sure going with it, then I would say make sure that you are, sorry, I mistyped it. Make sure that you talk to the vendor. So that way the vendor's kind of going through the pros and cons. And I know hospitals at the beginning will start teaching, but I think it's very important. This is so new that the sad part is that there's a lot of hospitals that don't have enough doctors with AI training. So they're kind of by themselves just learning how to do it or not, and not sure if this is a good tool. So we need more of you guys out there learning this stuff to be your chief medical officer with AI background to look at these tools. You're on mute, buddy. And then while you unmute, I'm just going to say the website is harveycastro.info/aid. But go ahead, Nathan, what's the next question? And then
Yeah,
I'll pull up the Q&A. I forgot you told me that. Go ahead.
no, I always end up on mute, and then and you can ask the rest of my team. I always forget to unmute myself, and I've had full conversations where I'm just muted the whole time. But anyways, so this next question is kind of similar, in that, this person, Crispin, they have multiple clients that want to apply AI in healthcare in the US and Canada, but HIPAA and other similar privacy standards set a very high compliance bar. And they're kind of asking, how do we deal with that?
Yeah, so there's parts of there. Okay, well, number one, I'm not a lawyer or anything like that, but the easiest way that I've seen from other companies, what they're doing is number one, they are scrubbing the data. So that way that OpenAI never sees the data. Number two, they're creating their own large language model and putting it inside the hospital servers. That way the hospital already has HIPAA compliant servers and they're using it that way. So that'd be one way. The other thing is there's in my course, I talk about it. There's 18 identifiers in HIPAA. So you want to make sure that you don't put any of those 18 things in your portion. Now, when you're using the AI, you could do the discharge instructions and if that doesn't comply, I mean, you don't have to worry about HIPAA in the sense that you're not putting that patient's information. And if you are, you can scrub that part. So that's the answer to that one.
Perfect. And then concerning implementation in Africa, don't you think the issue of digital divides would be an obstacle?
Yeah, I see it as this. If the government's, and I'm just being like big thinker, hoping and wishing that this is the case. I really think if Africa, for example, wants to implement this, that they do it for everybody, not just for the elite. That my idea is the opposite, that the government would pay for the internet, the government would allow this technology to integrate quicker, and that they would be subsidizing this. Because again, I feel like certain parts of Africa are not getting any healthcare. And if the government could use these tools, combining it with PA, but then they can leverage the technology to have people come into their workstations and ask questions. And then the output starts saying, okay, it's this, and then have a doctor or PA look at it and say, yep, this is correct. And then be able to use that. I think you'd be able to take care of more people. But yeah, that's always an issue depending if it's not done correctly.
And then can you expand a bit on the Epic and Microsoft working on EMR LLMs?
Yeah. So if you go on Google, just type in Epic, Microsoft, and OpenAI, and basically just to expand, it's kind of cool. I haven't, I don't have Epic at my hospital, so I can't play with it directly. But the idea is this: say you come in with a thick file and there's so much information, or you've been there 100 times in the last 3 years, there's just so much information. Now what Epic is doing is I can go in and use the power of AI to summarize. So let's say they're there for back pain, then I can say, hey, give me the latest MRI, or give me the results of the last two MRIs, or the specialist. So instead of me going through and trying to find the file and which one, it's literally looking at all the files, making summaries, and then showing it to me and saying, here you go, doc, which is really nice because sometimes there's so much data, it's just hard to get to it all. So good question.
And then kind of Quentin, I'm not forgetting you. I'm just Faye's question is kind of in this ballpark, so I want to ask it first. Is there any open source LLM which has been pre-trained with healthcare related knowledge?
Good question. No. As you know, there's Llama. There's other stuff. There's, now that I think about it, I did see something, but it's not, it's still using a combination of Llama, and doctors are doing it, but it's not perfect for you to just say, oh, here you go, it's an open source. With that said, I have a feeling now that Llama 2 is out, and then next year we're going to have another update of Llama. There rumors are that the next Llama will be as good as ChatGPT 4. And if that's the case and you train medical data on it, now you have a great product.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then how do you use your time to be updated on all things, including your practice and the ever-changing AI? So how are you prioritizing your time, Harvey?
Yeah, I've been blessed in that I'm now, as a medical director, it's the only way I'm practicing. So I'm looking at doctors, telemedicine. I do a little bit of telemedicine, but the majority of my time now is spent consulting startups, consulting different companies around the world on how to use AI in healthcare. So my focus to keep up to date now, it's been kind of crazy. I started a auto agent that basically I type in what are the latest AI healthcare news, and then this auto agent using ChatGPT technology gives me a summary. And so I just run it every time I need to, and then it gives me information, which is kind of cool. It's better than Google because it's literally, I could leave it running overnight and it's literally searching for different articles. And then in the morning, I have a nice summary, which is kind of cool.
Perfect. And uh, uh, AI penetration in healthcare raises ethical concerns, and how can we make AI systems, like how can we trust them in
Yeah.
healthcare?
Awesome question. So number one, I agree. This is not like picking a bad stock and you pick a bad AI picks the wrong stock and you lose money. No, like if you do it right, someone's dead. And so with that said, it goes back to my point of that whole bio GPT. We need to create our own large language models that we address the biases, and we address different parts to it so that we make sure that it's specific. My vision is that we need LLMs that are specific to certain specialties. We don't need like a ChatGPT that's good at everything. I don't think we need a one that's good at everything. I think we need to start focusing on a small portion of medicine. Like it could be just ER or just dermatology, and then really create that large language model. And then eventually we'll get there. I also think that the future, we need food labels. Just like when you go to buy your groceries, we should have food labels that are for our LLMs. So we know that the biases is this, the limitations is this, it's been trained on this data, not that data. Then when you look at it, you're like, okay, I really understand this large language model.
All right, Quentin, your turn. How do you see AI being implemented into your existing workflow?
Yeah, right now I think the easiest is, back office is easy because, to generate CPT codes or different billing codes, you can use ChatGPT with plugins. That's easy to do. For now, discharge summary is pretty easy because you don't have to worry too much about HIPAA because you can tease out the names of people and then you can just block that part. And then the actual part of the discharge, you can create a bridge where the system is putting it right into that part. So that way it's never even seen the name. So there's ways of doing it. And I think that's the easiest way to implement it into your workflow. Others, it's just simple brainstorming. You have a problem, you get on ChatGPT and you're like, hey, help me brainstorm through this problem. And then believe it or not, it does a pretty good job. Now, this is ChatGPT 4, not ChatGPT 3.5. 3.5 is good, but 4 is 10 times better. Literally yesterday, I was talking to my son, and after like 9 months, he finally said, yes, Dad. And he got the ChatGPT 4. Now he loves it. He's like, wow, Dad, I wish you would have pushed me harder. And I'm like, I've been telling you, use this thing. It's so much better. So yeah, that's my answer to that one.
All right, let me just clean this up a little bit. So how reliable are doctors' notes for training, with fine tuning or RAG? And knowing doctors' notes can vary a lot. So how are how can we incorporate those and make them more reliable, I guess?
No, that's a good question. So New York Tron basically did that. They were using doctor's notes. Now, the nice thing is all this stuff is typed. Can you imagine doing it with doctor's handwriting? You wouldn't get far. And then honestly, that's where it becomes interesting because it's that whole clinical gestalt of all those years of working. And obviously, it's that whole group effect where you're not using one doctor, you're literally using the whole hospital system, maybe in the last 10 years. So you're really using that data. And I think that's good. Now, again, you got to take it with a grain of salt. That will put something out and it may still hallucinate. And that's where I think it's a combination. It's not like this is going to take over. It's working together. It's looking at that data and saying, you know what, that's pretty good. Or, you know what, I disagree. I'm going to dig a little more. So big picture, I think it's good. And like you said, it's going to need fine tuning and I think it will be able to do it. And I personally think that's the way to go, actually. I think it's using doctor data and then medical journals and then using a combination and then reinforcement learning, like I mentioned. If that data is only for the ER, then having ER doctors reinforce that data using those notes to make sure that it is correct, as opposed to like a surgeon trying to do it for the ER where the surgeon doesn't work in the ER and they should have no business reinforcing that data because they're not an ER doc.
Mhm. Okay. And this next question is from Eli. And Eli, I bet Harvey could probably do a whole another hour just on this, but we'll try to do it quick. Could you describe how you trained your auto agent for individual news within GPT-4 integration? To our knowledge, GPT has no news aggregator or internet access, right?
Yeah, what I did is a little special. I'm using auto agents, and you have to have some technology background into it. And then with that, um, yeah, there's YouTubes that'll show you how to do it. It's not so simple. It could be a whole training session to do one. So that's actually something I've been debating on, just going online on LinkedIn and showing people how to do. Now, your point about GPT having news aggregation, you can actually get a plugin that's, and I'm pretty sure it's a GPT News, and then it'll go through all the news and then put it within ChatGPT. But that takes work, and it's not an auto agent yet.
And then Chase has a good question in the chat. How is publication quality taken into account?
Yeah, so that's another one that's tough, and it goes both ways. People are using ChatGPT, putting it in publications, and it's hard to keep up. And so we don't know, if this is good information and as much people are saying, oh, you can use this AI to see if AI is being used. There's so many studies that say that doesn't work. There was a big case at Texas A&M. Oh, when was it? In May, this professor asked ChatGPT, he's like, hey, these are papers I got. Was this plagiarized? And ChatGPT said yes, but there's no science behind it that you can actually get sued for doing that. So in big pictures, nobody really knows if you're using AI and can prove it. And then even if they say they can, there's lawsuits against there that you can't. So that whole thing that you're saying is really tough because the quality goes back to the human being. The human being is going to have to be the one that's regulating, reading everything, making sure that this is the right quality.
Mhm. And then we keep getting down to the last question and more keep flowing in. So
That's why we finished early.
right. So this is from Salish. What do you think are other strategies we can leverage to reduce hallucination from medical LLMs other than reinforcement learning, domain-specific corpus training data, et cetera?
Okay, I'm going to read it again. Sorry. What do you think are other strategies we can? Yeah, I think it's going to be a couple of things. Is my opinion. Number one, I think we need to create our own large language models that are specific to our country, specific then to our region, and specific to our hospital to really reduce hallucination. It needs to be in our customs, in our language, in our native tongue. And then with that said, there's this thing called federated learning. We need to make sure that we're using federated learning at our hospital systems to really reduce this hallucination, and then making sure that we are using the right doctors to do the correct reinforcement. And if we put all those factors together, we're going to have a really good product that can help our patients.
And I know GPT-based models, they can provide resources, but is it possible to provide explanations on how a GPT-based model provides output to the received queries and why it is the best possible output?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that are trying to do that. Bing Chat tries to put sources where it got the information. Try perplexity.ai. I think it's .ai, perplexity.ai. They have a Chrome extension and they have a website. Basically, you ask it any question and it tells you where it got it. Now, where it got the best information, that one's a little tough. You could ask Bing Chat and Perplexity to show you why it thinks that, and it might come up with that answer. The other answer to that is I think the big future is going to be this thing called Graph GPT. Imagine we're talking about chest pain, and then imagine that it's all the symptoms of chest pain, and it's creating a graph, and it's actually showing you the disease process, and then you're seeing it as a graph. I think that's going to be the future where it shows explainability. Now you can see what ChatGPT is thinking and how, and then it's easier for that eventually to get FDA approval.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and final question for now. Just kidding. Is there an existing software platform at work that you wish a trained chatbot existed on that doesn't already exist?
Is there an existing software plan with? I'm not following the question. So what are you asking? Sorry, you break it down for me, Nathan.
Can I break it down? Quentin, can you break it down a little bit? You should have the option to leave a chat there. That would be helpful.
Existing software plan. Yeah, sorry. Maybe it's the.
Oh, like
Okay, maybe there's an app that you could use daily basis. You know, the whole thing is making sure in at least healthcare, we're not putting patient information. So in theory, I could use ChatGPT, the app, and use it in healthcare. As long as I don't use those 18 identifiers, as long as I don't do that, I can get away with using that every day at work and in my workflow and helping me with my differential diagnosis and helping me. So I think that that'd be the way.
All right. So let's say a new discovery just happened. Given GPT is mostly about word prediction, how would the new discovery get promoted, and how should we think about the trustworthiness of the new discovery?
Yeah, that one's a hard one. I think I know what you're saying. So let's just say ChatGPT invented something and it came up with something and it's predicting, and it's basically by prediction. Here's how I see it. If in fact it has the highest IQ, and say the next generation is going to have even the highest IQ of people that are highly gifted, then to me, it's going to get hard because let's just say this thing gets smarter, so smart that it's smarter than us. then the smartest human being will look at an output and not know if this is correct or not. And so that's the next wave of things that are going to happen. We won't know. And that's kind of scary, because then at that point, if it's discovering drugs or it's just doing stuff, like until we experiment, until we get there, we'll know. So it's kind of scary. So I am worried about that day will come. And it's not like decades away. I personally think we're within, and now some people say 10 years. I disagree. I think we're within 3 years of that day happening.
All right. And then last question from Chase. Is the current state of LLMs at a level where we should expect hallucinations at a rate or significance similar to human level mistakes? Will Gemini exceed human level?
I personally think Gemini is going to exceed human level. It's all about prompt engineering and how you ask the question and how you rephrase it. If you don't ask it correctly, it's going to give you a so-so, kind of like garbage in, garbage out. Well, kind of putting the question in will also give you the question out wrong. I think that's why doctors have a little bit of an edge more on patients, in the sense that they use medical terminology. They know how to ask it. They know how to do differential diagnosis. They know the process. And so they can tease out a lot more than someone that's not medically trained. And so that's kind of my analogy to that one.
Okay. And I lied. Eli, you have our last question. So Eli, you're the last one here. How do you iterate your own questions in dialogues with ChatGPT? An example could be intelligent follow-up prompts or something else.
Yeah, I personally use it for like brainstorming, and I hope I answer this correctly. I literally I'm kind of like the captain of a ship. I say, this is my problem. And the best way is you got to give it a backstory. So say I'm writing a book on AI in healthcare. Then I'm like, hey, I'm a doctor. I am working on doing a book on AI in healthcare. I am looking for the following examples, and then help me write an outline. And then it gives me the outline. I look at it. I'm like, oh, I didn't like it. And then here's a great tip. You can say whatever ChatGPT says, even if it's the best, say, look at your answer and reevaluate it, even if you think it's amazing. Because then what it does, it looks at it and says, oh, maybe I missed something. And 9 out of 10 times it'll say, oh, you know what? I forgot to mention this. And so those are just simple tips that really make it amazing.
Yeah, I like to do the same thing. I like to say, you are this job title, you are crafting this.
Yeah.
What should it look like? I love, for example, like in marketing, blog outlines are really easy on ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So, and then I just send that to my team and they write the rest. So, and that kind of leads us into our webinar for tomorrow. So Harvey, thank you so much.